Yes, I'm inside. Yes, I got new lighting. And yes, I don't have a background, but I'm working on that. Anyways, today we're going to talk about a few different things. I got a couple of odd topics that I'd like to get to. I'd like to talk about competitive cheerleading, but something very specific that I've noticed is having a competitive cheerleader that I find interesting, and I wonder if anybody else would find fascinating. Of course, we gotta talk about Apple's top 100 best albums of all time list because are you on the internet if you're not talking about that? But before we actually get to the list, I think we could do a little bit better. We could do a job of trying to establish what their criteria was for the term best. We'll get into that a little bit further on. Anyways, and then of course we're going to ramble on about anything else that pops into this bleach blonde head today. Anyways, y'all know the game plan. Let's get into it. Play the intro. That's right. Anyways, today we are in for it. But I'd like to get into something real quick. This has nothing to do with anything, and it really doesn't matter to anyone except for me. And that is right now, there's a blank wall behind me, and it is driving me nuts. You can see over my shoulder here, I got a few things that are eventually going to go up on that wall, and we're going to decorate it and make it look a little bit more appealing, if you say so yourself. I know that has nothing to do with anything other than we are back. We are trying to get into this. We are going to be doing some different things. We're going to still do some of the reaction stuff, but really, I'd like to react to life instead. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go forward with this. We're going to do a podcast style thing, chop it up, make some other videos out of it, see what we can't do. Eventually, with the goal of going live with this, it's just a little easier to do it recorded right now because my time is, well, life. But that's irrelevant. We're going to get into this. And I'm going to start something off today with a brand new thing that I want to do. And that's what we're going to do is we're going to open up a RSS feed, which from the old internet, is a feed that gives you basically an access point to a certain website where you can read articles, and it basically lists them in a headline fashion. You'll see it when you go to like Google News and stuff like that. That's basically just an RSS feed. This one is specific for my interests, and so today we're going to take a look at some headlines, and we're just going to react to them cold. We're not going to read the articles because that's who does that? We're just going to do it the internet fun way. We're just going to, open up the RSS feed and read whatever headline says and extrapolate whatever we feel like. I will say that I'm going to start off by telling you right away that some of it's going to be satire, some of it will be real, some of it's going to have to be because some of the topics will be real topics. But we're going to have a little fun with it also. So, that's going to be something new that we haven't done. Right now, I haven't figured out exactly how to hook my phone up so y'all can see it too. So you're just going to have to listen to my voice read them. And then, like I said, we're going to get into a couple of the big topics like I talked about at the beginning. But is there anything that has happened in the world that we need to just jump into and say a few things about? Not really. And there will come a time where we will speak on some of the major topics that are happening around the globe. But I don't think we're ready for that stuff yet. While it is a fascination and an interest of mine and something I do deeply have a passion about, it's not something I'm ready to articulate upon the internet yet. But we will get there, I promise you. We're going to be cutting edge. Anyways, before all of that nonsense, let's have a little fun. Is there any songs that people have been just jamming to? There's a couple of fascinating songs. A country music song that I'm really interested in. It's kind of cool. I'm going to do some reactions here on the channel probably tomorrow. We're going to get back to those in the next couple of days. They're going to start going up on the channel ASAP. You know, trying to get back into the swing of things. Life has kicked me in the booty, and that's just the way it goes. Hey, what are you going to do about it? Anywho, let's do one of the stupidest things I've ever done on the internet. And we're just going to blindly read headlines. And again, we're not going to read the articles because why? So the first one we're going to go to is going to be TMZ. We're going to read TMZ's headlines, and we're again not going to read the articles, just the headlines. Extrapolating info. We're going to call this reacting like the internet. All right. Morgan Spurlock, Super Size Me director, dead at 53 from cancer. See, we're going to start right off the bat with saying something. We're doing one of these topics that isn't going to ever be satire because losing a human being to anything is sad, and shouts out to his family, you know, T's and P's and all the normal stuff. It means nothing for me coming to you guys, but just know that his visions were interesting and unique, and I'm really caught off guard by this. I didn't know, man, cancer, that sucks. If you haven't seen Super Size Me, it's a very interesting documentary about fitness and about how nutrition comes through us via fast food. And while it's a very biased take, and I know it's not a documentary for everybody, the fact that this sort of, I don't know, cutthroat, like it reminds me of like the early version of a YouTube video. It really was ahead of his time, and whether or not you agreed with what he was saying, his ability to create a documentary on such a basic independent level and make it become maybe one of the most famous documentaries of modern times. Man, sad to hear that about Morgan Spurlock. He was definitely cool. He did a couple of those. I think he did 2 of them. Some guy made a super high me one to make it, it's just an interesting guy, and his story was really cool. And maybe we'll talk about it one day a little bit deeper. Now let's get back to just reading these headlines, and hopefully the next couple are a little funnier than that one. Millie Bobby Brown reportedly marries John Bon Jovi's son in secret wedding. I'm sure there's a Stranger Things Bon Jovi joke in there somewhere. But, after this Morgan Spurlock thing, I don't know if I have that one in the chamber ready to rock and roll. But Millie Bobby Brown, who cares? Were they a thing? Who cares? Let's move on. Hey, puppy. Billie Eilish appears to shade Taylor Swift, calls 3-hour concert psychotic. Yeah. If you don't have 3 hours worth of music to play, it would definitely be psychotic. How long can you play Bad Guy for? How many times can you play that? And I don't even like Taylor Swift. She's not for me. Her music isn't mine. I'm a man with a fucking beard. I'm not a Taylor Swift fan, and the fact that not for me. I haven't ever broke up with the guy. So, Billie Eilish is just, I don't think, I'm sure if we read any article, it's probably not as deep as they're making it out to be. She's saying it's psychotic in the fact that that anybody could do that. It is wild. I've gotten the fortune to be in the attendance for a Taylor Swift concert. I promise you, she does her thing. All right, on to the next one. Naked and afraid contestant says blade used to remove tick from penis. Oh. Just occasionally you get caught off guard by a headline that I got nothing to say about that. I don't know nothing about ticks. I know there's Lyme disease worries, and isn't this the same dude that it burned his penis on the show? It's time to get off the show, buddy. This is not your show. Britney Spears angers Michael Jackson's fans by backing accuser Wade Simpson, Wilson. The headline cuts off, so I don't know his last name, but I think it's like something like Wilson Simpson, something like that. Yeah, I mean, I'm not getting into the Michael Jackson thing. I'll just say this: until we see the penis picture, if you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. Just know that makes sense. Britney Spears and him were friends when they were younger. He was literally the choreographer for whatever that. All right, puppies, man. You see what I mean? Brand new puppy. Beck, West, Cadbury West. Come on now. Hey. Hello, hello, hello. Yeah, go. All right. Anyways, yeah. So her back in the guy who choreographed one of her biggest hits. I can't remember which one. The one where she's in the red leather, plastic leather, whatever it is. All right, Mr. West. All right, Mr. West, down, 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 buddy. Hey, Mr. West is in the building. I got it. All right, all right, all right, all right. Hey. Okay. All right, let's get back to these. Like, okay, relax. It's puppy time. I got it. Blind and deaf. Okay, we're moving on. Nope, not doing it. Not talking about that one for multiple reasons. One, because we just had Mr. Webb. All right, buddy. Hey. Calm down. I know. I'm being excited because I'm over here talking and going crazy, and now you're over here. All right. Hey. Don't bite me. Come on now. Hey, come on, pup. Vince Vaughn takes stage at Las Vegas bar, jams to country songs. Could you imagine going to a bar and running into Vince Vaughn and him just Vince Vaughn it up? Like, yeah. All right. Indianapolis 500 food options include tomahawk steak, Bloody Marys, and a bunch of other stuff. I've never been to the Indianapolis 500, but as a kid, I went to the Brickyard. Coolest racetrack. If you're into racing, it's definitely one of those mecca places you need to go. The dog is wasting so much time. We got to move on. Sean Kingston arrest video police take him after concert. Hey, you know what? Pay your taxes. Simple as that. Don't. They'd come after you. South Park skewers, Lizzo, Ozempic, and obesity special. Look, if you've been following fitness for a while, Ozempic is not a new thing. It's a cheat code. That's all I'm going to say about that. We'll move on. Legendary Home Alone house hits Illinois market for 5.5 million. Hey, man, they'll get it. That house is cool. Looks cool, at least. Gayle King shoots her shot with Lenny Kravitz. Ooh, did I just say that? I mean, who wouldn't? Have you seen Lenny Kravitz? Kindergartner gives hilarious answer to future questions at graduation. No idea what that is because we're not reading the article. Red Lobster bankruptcy renews interest in horror film. You see a headline like that. Red Lobster bankruptcy renews interest in horror film. You just go like, what could be the connection? Dog scratch the crap out of me. Hey. Drake raps over Metro Boomin's. Hey. Drake. Hey. Drake raps over Metro Boomin's BBL Drizzy on Sexy Red Tay Keith song. Jesus Lord. Hey. That's hilarious. Of course he does. What else would he have done? I'm not getting into it. There's just so much things about that don't. The man don't even got a nice butt. Like, that's the thing. Like, if he had a nice butt, I could see it, but he just doesn't. I mean, unless there's pictures out there of BBL Drizzy that I ain't seen, and I'm not saying I've Googled his ass more than once, but maybe I have. I'm just saying there is that possibility. I'm just saying, that thing about if the FBI is looking at your computer, I'll just say that if they were, they would have knocked on my door for some of the things that I have Googled. And, Jersey may have been. Anyways, pro golfer Louis Jaeger goes topless on course to hit muddy shot. Of course he does. Golfers are fucking odd. Angel Reese takes shot at Caitlin Clark and now deleted message. Of course she does. These two have literally a on-court history. And I was going to save this, and we're going to dig deep into this in a later topic. Hey. We'll dig deeper into this into a later topic. Straight up. Look, I'm going to hit some bullet points real quick. I know this is a sidebar, so we're going to do this really, really, really quickly, okay? Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark is going to be the greatest part of the Caitlin Clark story. If you think that the things that are happening in the world of basketball are solely because of Caitlin Clark, you haven't been in the women's basketball, you haven't been paying attention at all, okay? And Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark's stories are so intertwined that they are going to be a part of a very interesting thing. If you're not a basketball fan, the history of basketball's rise in popularity might not be so concrete in your head, so you may not be as aware of it as other people, but everybody knows Michael Jordan as the greatest of all time. But what they don't know is that the reason Michael Jordan gets to be the greatest of all time is because Magic Johnson and Larry Bird came along first and had the rivalry of all rivalries that took a dying league like the NBA and turned it into an iconic world-level league. One of the biggest leagues in the world. Now, it pales in comparison to football here in America, and that's the way it is. But on an international stage, basketball is competing with football, not football. Okay? Now, the reason it got to get to that place was because of the Magic and Larry rivalry. Now, of course, there was some changes in the way basketball was ruled, how they played, how they paid players. Everything was changing. There was a bunch of things that had to be in place for it to get to where it was for Larry and Magic to succeed. Now, I say all that to say that if you know that story, you will know that one of those guys was the it man. And now, in hindsight, we think of them both as equal. But they were equal as players, but they weren't necessarily equal in hype. Right? Magic was the thing. Magic was Caitlin Clark. He was the icon. He was the biggest star on earth. Larry was Angel Reese. Just as good, just as dominant, just didn't control the headlines. Just didn't get the juices and people flowing the same way. They had a rivalry in the NCAA. And that rivalry somehow put them on teams where they would face each other multiple times in the NBA championship, leading to some of the biggest ratings the NBA had ever seen up until that point. And what started that entire thing was that rivalry. And so now we have Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, and what we have is the budding of a future powerhouse league. The WNBA is poised to be the new big guy on the market. I know you can't compete with football or college football, but you do get yourself into the world of baseball and hockey. And basketball is such a big thing. And as we're about to end the NBA season, as we are approaching the finals very quickly, the WNBA season is just getting in stride. We haven't gotten college basketball or college football back. So there's going to be a void because hockey's about to end too. WNBA could be that thing to get us from playoff hockey, playoff basketball, right into the NFL season. And if they do their things right, and the thing they need the most is both of these players, both Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, to not only continue to push their rivalry, but also to push each other. Because the rivalry isn't about yapping and going back and forth. The rivalry has to be about winning games. There's a reason why the Indiana Fever had the number 1 overall pick 2 years in a row, so you're going to have to wait and give it a little bit of time. Angel Reese is on a bit better of a team. They have a bit better of a chance to get away and get into things right away. And you will see that if you look, I'm not getting into it too much because we've already got off on a tangent that we weren't expected to talk about today, because that's the way it works when you got an ADHD brain. But some topics are just that important, and this one is one of those ones that I think means a lot. And I don't want to over-exaggerate when I say that there is almost an entire league riding on the success of these players. Because if all eyes on me and we all succeed, it could lead to big, big things. And now, I'd like to do a deeper comparison where I could pull up stats and figures and really get into the nitty gritty on these things. This is just a topic that came straight off the top of my head. It solely came out of nowhere. It is a very valuable piece of information. I think it's a beautiful thing, and I hope to God that both Caitlin and Angel get all the success, the praise, the power, the everything that they want and need, and they're going to have the backing of a lot of people, and let's continue to push this forward. It does make me sad about one little thing, though, and it's the fact that the reason that I opened my eyes to the WNBA and the women's college basketball was because of Kobe Bryant, right? And the fact that we're on the verge of what feels like an explosion for this league, does hit home that he doesn't get to see it, and he would have been the one screaming about this the most, and he would have enjoyed this, and would have liked to have heard his take on that, not my own bambling bullshit. But don't worry, as guys like Pat McAfee and some of the other big names in the sports media world start talking about these things. Hey, what are you doing? You never bark like this. Come on now. It'd be nice to hear Kobe Bryant's take on what's happening instead of my bumbling, rumbling, stumbling, mumble ass. Anyways, let's move on. We're going to go ahead and just get off the headline reacts like the internet would and get into some other things because, that is the only thing we got to talk about. We already done wasted, half of our time already. So I want to talk about the big topic that is smashing music internet this week, and that is Apple Music's Top 100 Best Albums of All Time. Before we really get into the actual album stuff, I don't. Maybe we could take this moment to recontextualize the word best and see why, when it comes to these best lists, they really do kind of set some people off. And I think we should get into it. So let's go ahead and break it down. Okay, when it comes to the term best, right? We got a few things that we can think about the word best. When we're talking objective best, right? We're not talking about, the best selling, the best with something that we have a tangible asset to, right? Like, not talking about number ones, best this, best, like something that has tangibility. This is something that is completely objective. This is, what do they think is the best? There's not an exact measurement to what would be required to place you in numerical order, right? So when you're thinking about best, there's really three ways to think about objective best lists. And that's, is this just an opinion, right? Do they mean the best in like an influential way? Do they mean popularity? Or do they mean that ability to last the test of time? Right? Well, if it's just someone's opinion, not a whole lot can be done or said about it, right? It's just their opinion. They have, as the great quote once went, opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one and they all stink, right? And that's just the way it is. But it's their opinion. It's not really an arguable thing. You can't say, oh, your opinion's wrong. Well, because it's an opinion, it doesn't really, it's not arguable. So, what's the point to speak about it? So there's not a whole lot to be really discussed on that one. So if it's this is my opinion, in my opinion, that list is just what that list is, and the rest of us can speculate whether that opinion is worth a damn or not. Now, that's a whole different argument. But you can't really argue the list because then it's their opinion. Then, of course, we have whether or not they're talking best as in popularity, right? Like how big or how much of a fan base. In this case with music, how big was the album? How important? How much did it get played on the radio? How much albums did it have? But then this kind of leans towards that tangible best. And then it's not really, again, then there's no arguments. You just start putting numbers to things and go, this was. And, I don't think that's what they were doing. I don't think when it comes to these things, I don't think most people go that route, because then that leaves no chance for idiots like me to make a commentary about it. And that's sort of half the fun, right? And so then you could also think about, well, is this an influential thing? Which again is objective, right? Because you can't say how many songs were influenced by the Beatles. Well, the list is probably long. And then can you compare anything else? Well, because the Beatles were so early, they have trickled down to almost everybody else. Does that mean that they then by our default are the biggest influence? And it's like, well, again, these are objective because you can't really define it. Another way to think about the term best could be if they're talking about the best influence, the best future creators, the best people to inspire, the best. And in that case, again, we get to that place where we start talking about opinion. Really kind of undefinable. So it has to be just as is. Okay. And then, you could always talk about whether or not it is a big selling album, if it's whatever. But to me, I think if I was going to consider something the best, I think the number one criteria for me would have to be its lasting effect, right? If you played that album in 50 years, would people go, oh, yeah, I've heard that? And there are songs and stuff like that are gigantic. I just think they missed the mark with a lot of these, and I just don't think they were very good. So, you know what? Let's not recontextualize the word best any longer, because I'm just rambling on about objectiveness. Let's just get to the actual list real quick. We're going to blow through basically 95 of them, and we're going to really talk about the top 5. And, it is what it is. Apple Music's best 100 albums of all time. Here is the list. And we start off with Robin Body Talk. And I'm going to be honest with you, wasn't familiar with this record. Not at all. Had to look it up. Didn't know it. Don't know it. Now, I'm just some schmuck from Nowheresville, so doesn't mean nothing. Let's see what else. Hotel California at 99. Arguably the best-selling album that's ever existed, right? I think there's some lists that put it as the best-selling album ever. 99. Astroworld, Travis Scott. Love Travis. Incredible. Think he's amazing. He's got a lot of influence. Just don't know if it's 98. My first reaction when I first saw this was like, no, he shouldn't even. Then I was like, you know what? This album really did influence the entire generation. And if that's the case, I think 98's kind of weak for that. But, oh well. We're not going to stop on every one of them. Rage Against the Machine, 97. Again, one of the most influential bands, of an entire generation. But, put it at the end. Pure Heroin by Lorde. Really unique. Lorde has this awesome voice and really does amazing stuff. Look, I'm not going to nitpick every position because I don't know. It's pretty good to me. I've never sat down and wrote them in the top 100. Confessions by Usher. Yeah, this definitely should be one of the 100 best albums. No doubts. God, this thing sucks. Burial, Untrue. Again, not an album I've ever heard of, but I did read that they were very big and they had a big influence on a lot of stuff. So, you know what? Again, maybe it should be one of the top 100. This is where we run into our first problem. Solange. This is where you start to realize that Apple Music might be trying to buy Tidal. I'm moving on. Flower Boy by Tyler, the Creator. Tyler, the Creator has two albums on this list. When we get to the end, I'm going to name a couple that didn't even get on this list. And look, I love Tyler. This is one of the most beautiful albums of all time on here. And I genuinely love this album. Good Lord. When we get down to number 5, when we get down to the top 5, we'll talk about some of the things that got missed off this list. George Michael. George Michael is always the top 100. Back in Black. By the way, one of the top 10 selling albums of all time. Of all time. Of all time. Influence beyond, and the story behind this album, the fact that this is a top 100 album of all time. Yes, this is a top 25 album of all time. There's just, I don't get it. I'll never get it. Lady Gaga, again, super influential, very important. Fame Monster is an incredible album. I said incredible a lot. Stop saying it. No, incredible. Fame Monster is definitely a gorgeous album from front to back. It is worth listening to. If you're not a fan of Lady Gaga, it's at least worth checking out one time because it is incredible. It is amazing. Nina Simone, Put a Smell on You. I Put a Spell on You. Again, if you've never heard this, please go listen to it. Please play it. This is, without a shadow of a doubt, a top 100 album of all time. Probably top 50 for me, but again, I've never written this out, so I'm just going to agree that it should be a top 100, and we'll move on. Massive Attack, Blue Lines. Again, I don't know them. I don't know of this album so much, but I know it has a place, and it's very important. And Massive Attack is massive. Mary J. Blige, My Life. Yeah, I think it's top 100 album. Mary J. Blige is always the top 100. Again, when we get into some of the people that get left off this list, this is one of the ones that kind of bugs me. Casey Musgraves, Golden Hour. Love Casey. She's got one of the coolest tones ever. And, I don't know. With some of the people that get left off this list, I just don't know if that cuts the mustard. Doggy Style. Doggy Style by Snoop Dogg. It's a first album, and in every way, it is, I think, a 19-year-old kid's album. So, you know, its importance is less about its classicness, but more about its place in time. Patti Smith, Horses, cool album, cool time, cool sound. Patti Smith does some cool stuff. If you haven't heard that, you should. It's awesome. This is one of my biggest gripes with this entire thing. I know not everybody alive was living through this time, but please, y'all have to understand that the moment that 50 Cent dropped, the world shut down. 50 Cent revolutionized hip hop music's power. Eminem, think about it. Eminem was a home run hitter, right? He's cacao, cacao, cacao. But he got a stigma. We'll talk about it in a minute. But 50 Cent was 50 Cent. And this album did incredible things. He was incredible. I was at the peak of my hip hop love when this came out. And so, of course, it has some nostalgia value. But just to understand that an unknown artist went from making a diss record about the biggest artist in New York to having the #1 album on earth. Boy, oh boy, 82 feels like a weak number. Again, this is probably top 25 for me, maybe even top 10. After the Gold Rush, Neil Young, always incredible. I think this is his biggest album. I'm not the biggest Neil Young fan. Can't say I listened. I've heard a lot, because Neil Young, he's get played in a lot of stuff, but I've never listened to it. Biggest selling rap album of all time. Multiple Grammys. And that's the key to a lot of these people at the top is their Grammys, right? Right? All the awards must have recognized. Grammys. This album has Stan on it. Just, I'll get more. Yeah. This is top 5 greatest album of all time. This has a place. This album has a place. I know I got bleached blonde hair. I know. But I know. I know. It seems like, but look, no. Because my biggest gripe with this whole entire goddamn thing is that the best rapper on planet Earth isn't even on this list. Ooh, we're going to get into it. But this, 80. For the next 10, I'm just going to say not the Marshall Mathers LP, and we're just going to scroll past because you're just going to see it. Look. Not the Marshall Mathers LP. All right, this is a fire album. Look, Elton John, always fire. Ain't no disrespect. Ain't Marshall Mathers LP. Ain't the Marshall Mathers LP. See how that. By the way, shout out to Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny's. Goddamn, Bad Bunny is fire. Like, I don't want this. You can't disrespect Bad Bunny. And I will never disrespect the most important female rapper of all time. The most influential rapper in modern music. That's not named Gucci Mane, who's also not on this list. I'm not going to go into it, but Gucci Mane. Anyways. All right. I was going to talk a lot of shit, but they I'm going to put some respect on these artists' names. Because, yeah, they all top 100. I'm not going to argue their place because I don't have that much love. It's not that, passionate for me, but that's one of the top 100 albums of all time. Steely Dan, cool. Really interesting. Did a lot of very unique sounds. SZA, and I love SZA. She might be, as Drake said, better than Kendrick. Man, I just don't know if she's the top 100 album of all time. I just don't know if it's had enough time to marinate on the world yet. Kraftwerk, again, I know that they're important. I know they have a big influence. I know that for a certain style of music, they are one of the pioneers. So, definitely probably should be a top 100 album. Huh. So I said 10 because I was going to try to be respectful all the way up, disrespectful all the way up till this, but there is no album on this list that comes out by a rapper that doesn't owe something to this album. And the fact that this one is at 70 is a shame, and just it's almost as egregious as the Marshall Mathers LP. Metallica Master Puppets, again, I got no problems with this being a top 100. I do like the irony of it being 69, given, James Hetfield will definitely enjoy that. The Strokes always deserve to be a top 100. Again, the influence was high. Portishead, don't know this all really well. I've heard the name, don't know the album. I'm sure it's probably important. The Queen is Dead, the Smiths. Yeah, you know what? When we talk about influence, the Smiths are definitely super influential, and there's a lot of people that owe their everything to the Smiths. So, yeah, top 100 album of all time. De La Soul, top 100 album of all time. 3 Feet High and Rising. It should always be a listen. If you haven't heard it, go out and check it out. It's fire. Baduism. The Baduism. Look, it's funny. There's the story about Erykah Badu and Onyx. I want to get into it one day. We can talk about the Badu list. And the fact that, when she decides, they get up, in multiple ways. Shout out to Erykah Badu. This top 100 album of all time. I'm not going to argue its place. Jimi Hendrix Experience being at 63 just feels disrespectful. I mean, again, when we talk about influence, this guy is one of the most influential artists of all time. This album has to go up higher than that, but I get it. Doesn't have any hits on it. All Eyes on Me. No hip-hop album on this list besides NWA has any right to say how influential they are on modern hip-hop and what they have created and what they have become and what it means to be everything, as this album does. The fact that it is 62 is disrespectful, and I have my own personal opinions about Tupac Shakur and his music and what his messaging was, because what it didn't match. Not get into it. This is disrespectful. 62 is disrespectful. This is a top 25 album of all time. There is no reason why this should be nowhere near the top. It's insane. Sade, Love Deluxe, top 100 album of all time for sure. Velvet Underground and Nico, again, one of the most influential bands of a certain style of music, deserves to be on the top 100. Not above Marshall Mathers, though. Arctic Monkeys, AM. Arctic Monkeys, again, pioneers, really kind of set a standard in their style of music. I don't know if they were one of the first real, but they were up there. Oasis, for the fact that you can't go into any piano bar on earth without hearing that stupid song. Probably top 100 album. Voodoo by D'Angelo. This was tough. It's it doesn't have a lasting impact. Kids today ain't listening to D'Angelo. This doesn't get played. And I can't ever forget the 50 Cent line. He went butt ass for his record to sell. Anyways, it just doesn't have the lasting impact. I don't think this is the top 100 album. This is one of the ones that's definitely, probably to me, not a top 100 album. The Cure probably deserves to be a little higher than this. This is probably a top 50 album of all time. But again, I'm not going to argue its placement. We ain't got time for that. Rihanna, one of the best-selling female artists of all time, one of the biggest names ever, amazing, probably just deserves to be a little higher than this, but hey, what are you going to do? It's definitely a top 100 album. John Coltrane. Again, when you talk about influence, not a hip-hop, I'm not going to do it again, but the point being that, John Coltrane, yeah. I dig his music. I dig it. Yeah, I'm saying. The Rolling Stones. not a top 100 anything to me. I think they're terrible. Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction. Again, we're gonna get into the nitty gritty on this one. Probably deserves to be a top 25 album, but definitely worthy of the top 100, no doubts. I think top 30 probably is definitely where I would have it. Sign of the Times by Prince. I mean, probably should be a top 50 album. 51's pretty good. Not gonna nitpick on it. Definitely should be above Kate Bush, though. That's just like Prince should always be on top of Bush. That's all I'm saying. Nope, not a personal opinion. Can't let it seep in. U2's terrible. U2's terrible. Beastie Boys, Paul's Boutique. Yep, definitely a top 50 album. Drake, Take Care. This one's interesting, and I've said it a few times yeah, really is kind of the spark to the whole thing. So it is important. This is the best-selling artist of modern music. So, yeah. Bob Marley and the Wailers, Exodus, not being in the top 25 is disrespectful. Bjork, Homogenic. Cool. Really interesting sound. One of the coolest tones. I love Bjork. Definitely a top 100 album. Maybe not top 50, but top 100. Stevie Wonder. Being superstitious. Writing something. Wow. That's kind of why I have my mic set up the way I do. Not even joking. Anyways, Stevie Wonder, probably a top 25, but I give it top 50. It's an incredible album. Talking Heads, not for me, but their influence is big. I dig it, top 50 for sure. Janet Jackson, Control. Oh, man. If y'all remember, this album did as far as numbers and popularity, this thing was incredible. Definitely a top 50. Criminal. 41 feels a bit low, but definitely a top 50. I think I would have went top 20, but that's personal bias. Never loved a man the way I love you. I don't know if that's how it goes. I don't remember. Aretha Franklin, top 100 album of all time for sure. Illmatic. 39. Should be probably a little higher than that, but I ain't mad at 39. Carole King, Tapestry. Yeah, definitely probably a top 50 album. Enter the Woo. Never was for me and never really loved it, but I understand its place and I understand what its importance is, and I understand that without a lot of the things that happened in this, aren't we where we are. 37's probably a little low. I think it's definitely probably a top 30, but 36 would have been perfect, I think. If you're going to do it, you put it at 36. But hey, what do I know? Yeah, I mean, influence. Can't argue Beyonce. Again, her music's not for me. Never was. So I get it. Definitely top 50. The Clash. I don't know, just for their influence. I think 35 is low, but London Calling, good album. Cool. You want to listen to something just really unique? They're definitely worth it. It Takes a Nation, Millions to Hold Us Back. Public Enemy. I mean, I don't know. Influence-wise, I just feel like this should be higher, but, you can't put them all up there, I guess. Today, Radiohead, again, never for me. Don't like Radiohead, but I understand that there's a lot of people that really, really, really fuck with Radiohead. So, ready to dive. Remember all those things I said about Tupac and the Marshall Mathers LP and 36 Chambers and NWA? Without all these things, the hip-hop community couldn't be where it is today, and this album being outside of the top 20 is disrespectful. Especially coming from you, E-Bro. Alanis Morissette, Jagged Little Pill. I mean, this was a moment in time, and I don't know how it wasn't for me. I'm not a Alanis Morissette fan, so I never listened. It's not like this is the jam. I know that a lot of people really dig it and really love her. I know she had a lot of influence, and there was a time in the early '90s where you could not listen to it. So, or mid '90s, somewhere around there. Billie Eilish. I'm going to get to somebody that was left off this list. I just remember this spot. Low End Theory by the Tribe Called Quest being in the top 30 and Illmatic not being in the top 30 feels a type of way, but whatever. Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, again, not for me. I find it boring, but I get it. Big influence. Probably should have been a top 20, but 28. What are you going to do? Led Zeppelin, again, influence. Top 30, maybe, yeah. My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, Kanye West. Influence alone, of course, it is modern hip hop. I just think the fact that 808s and Heartbreaks isn't on here, and this is, I don't know. I guess we're nitpicking. And it's an important album, but I don't know if it's more important than Illmatic or 36 Chambers, or without any of those albums, do we get to this? So, I don't know. Miles Davis, Kind of Blue. One of the coolest sounds you'll ever hear is jazz music. Anyways, definitely top 25. One of the most, again, a lot of this music doesn't, at most all modern music doesn't exist without this man. So, yeah, top 25. Probably should have been a top 10, but hey, whatever. Ziggy Stardust, Spider from Mars. Yeah, influence. Daft Punk. Not for me, but I get it. Born to Run, Bruce Springsteen. Don't get it. Never got it. Bruce Springsteen is terrible. Sounds terrible. His music's terrible. I don't get it. If you like Bruce Springsteen, good for you. Not for me. Beatles, Revolver. Yeah. Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys. I don't think so. Not a top 20 album. No. Influential, important, just terrible. Yep. Definitely top 20 album of all time. Top 20 album of all time. Top 20 album of all time. Joni Mitchell Blue. One of the coolest, most. You got to listen to a Joni Mitchell record. It is. Just do it. So good. Adele, 21. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to. Definitely. Yeah. Beautiful, credible, amazing. I don't know. I get it, I guess. Yeah, top 20, I guess. This album has girls, girls, girls on it. This album has girls, girls. This album has this album has girls, girls, girls on it. It also has Crybaby, which beautiful. Oh man, Jay is the Black Album. It's the Black Album is his better album. The Black Album. Okay, Computer, Radiohead. Yeah, you know what? Probably top 15 album. This is a top 30 album. Probably top 15 album. Radiohead's super important. Gotta plays, blah, blah, blah. Fleetwood Mac ended COVID, right? Like, we all know that dude on a skateboard literally, he skated into all of our lives and ended COVID. Lemonade, Beyonce. No. 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 You can see the power that this couple has of influence. No. Later time and date, I will get into my hatred of Nirvana. But just know that while I hate them, I do fully respect their importance and this album's meanings to the world and what it meant. But I personally hate this album, hate these people. Go Shotguns. Amy Winehouse. Yeah, I don't know about a top 10, but probably definitely a top 25. Really unique. So interesting. And yeah, you know what? Maybe it is top 10 because of its influence. It's not a top. It's just not one of the top 10 best albums of all time. It's not. It's not. It's not even the best album to come out of the West Coast. It's not the best album to come out of that production. It's not the best album to come out of this human. It's Pimp a Butterfly. I don't know. It's disrespectful to put a GOAT not in, like, one of the greatest of all time. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Kendrick is amazing. It just hasn't been around long enough with that much. It's just, it hasn't imparted enough culture on the world to be a top 10 greatest album of all time, especially when I get to the people that are not on this list. Oh, it's disrespectful to say bad things about Good Kid, Mad City. It's one of the most amazing albums. It's just not important enough. It's not a classic. Songs of the Key of Life, yeah, it's probably a top 10 album. Stevie Wonder, beautiful. Now that we've gotten to the top 5, I'd like to speak on this a little bit. I don't know who I don't know why this specific album has decided to be the one that has irked my nerves the most, but this guy doesn't care about this album. This album gets played nowhere. Nowhere. Nobody's listening to it. No one is jamming out to it. No one is playing it on the radio. It doesn't get. Pinky White has 82 million views on YouTube. Queen does that every song. I never understood this one. This is beyond me because I don't get it. I know it got a couple Grammys, but it didn't really even dominate. It didn't sell big. It hasn't led to a lasting career. It's like I don't know. I just don't find this album to be good. I don't find it to be solid. It is not worthy of a top 5. It's not worthy of a top 10. I mean, I understand its importance to a certain segment of the modern generation, but like Kodak Black ain't playing Frank Ocean. That's all. It's just not. It's not a top 50 album. It's not. There's no rhyme or reason for this to be on there. None at all. None at all. I think this is the second most disrespectful thing on this entire list. The first being Marshall Mathers at 82, and then this. I think they should be swapped. I think this album means nothing. And it's a boring album. It's terrible. Terrible. Purple Rain, definitely a top 4 album of all time. You could argue it's number 1. You could argue it's number 2. You could argue it's number 3. You could argue it's 4. You could argue it's 5, but you can't argue any lower than that. It is one of the greatest albums ever been achieved by any form of any living thing that's ever happened. And without this album, we don't get modern music. Shouts out to Purple Rain. It's one of my favorite albums. It is. I probably have it as my number 2 album of all time, but it's up there. It is up there. It is up there. Yeah, you know, it means a lot to me on a personal level. I had this vinyl hanging up on my wall as a kid. It was, oh man, what Prince means to me is he's super influential in who I am as a human being. His music, at least. Abbey Road, top 5 album of all time. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. The Beatles, nothing on this list exists without this album. So, the Beatles. Won't deny that it probably should be the number 1 album. Biggest selling, most influential, most important. So many things, but you know what? When it comes to the top 5, you are nitpicking. You are nitpicking. You are nitpicking. And this album deserves to be there. And should it be number 1? Yeah. Should it be number 2? Yeah. Could it be 3, 4, 5? Yeah. No. It can only be 1 or 2. It really, maybe 3. If you put Purple Rain up there above it, I wouldn't argue it too much, but the only problem I have with it being number 2 is that this is the number 1 album. I don't want to disrespect Lauryn Hill. What she did on Grammy night, sweeping the Grammys, is a feat that still hasn't been completed. Yes, everything. It is amazing. I think she's awesome. It's just not the number 1 album of all time. The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill is an important album. It means a lot of things to a lot of people. Just don't know if it's number. I can't make a clear argument as to why it should be number 1. I do think it's top 5. I think, for my personal opinion, I don't know if it goes there, but for what it did in the Grammys, how many units it sold, what it did, its influence, all those things we talked about ahead of time, I think there's definitely a place for it to be in the top 10, maybe the top 5, but I don't, above Thriller and Purple Rain and Abbey Road, I just don't know if I could do it. I don't know. I don't think I could do it. And I don't know if I could understand any argument that does. So while I did argue that those other last few albums could have been 1 through 5, I don't think this one could have been. I think this one could only be 5th through 10th. Yeah, off the top of your head, can you name more than one song off this thing? I mean, I know there's a certain generation that could, and then their kids could. But can they kids? I don't know. This one just doesn't. Quick side note about Lauryn Hill, real quick, before I get off this whole Apple list. I was talking about Lauryn Hill one time, and I was like, one of the greatest singer-songwriters of all time. And somebody's like, rapper. She's a rapper. I'm like, no. No. She doesn't. Oh my God, she is a rapper. I'll be honest, I was like way too old to have realized that she was a rapper. Yeah. Greatest female rapper of all time, probably. Absolutely. One of the most influential artists of all time. Again, this is why I couldn't argue that it should be a top 5. This should be the 5th best album of all time. Shouldn't be number 1. Anyways, let's jump off this Apple list. And real quick, I just want to show you all the list of the best-selling albums of all time. Just in case you're curious, Thriller is number 1. Back in Black is 2. Whitney Houston, The Bodyguard, not on that list. Not on that list. And if it was, I didn't see it. I don't remember it. Pink Floyd, yeah. Michael Jackson, Bad, not on the list. Kendrick Lamar had 2 albums on there. Or Kendrick Lamar had Good Kid, Mad City. Bad isn't on there. Bat Out of Hell by Meatloaf. Top 10 best-selling album of all time. Probably most influential melody creator of ever. Even if you don't know that music, even if you don't know Meatloaf, you know that song. I'm like a bad at it. Shania Twain not being on that list at all is just disrespectful. Biggest selling female artist of all time, or one of. It is 100 million albums. She sold over 100 million albums. Bee Gees, not on that list. Dangerous, not on that list. No Celine Dion. Beatles, the one album, not on that list. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart, not on that list. ABBA? Nope, not on that list. Nope, yeah, why would he do it? No Santana. No Nora Jones. No Eric Clapton. No Britney Spears. No Queen. No Queen. No Queen. They did no Queen. No Linkin Park. No Jovi. One George Michael. No Backstreet Boys. No Spice Girls. You know, I don't know. I don't know. Whoever made that list was either out here trolling or just trying to make people just, I don't know. It just, I guess it drove up subscriptions. People subscribed to Apple Music because of it. I don't know. Maybe I'll do a top 10 of my own personal list. Maybe we'll work on that next week. Anyways, let's go ahead and get ready to close this thing out with one last topic today. This one is a little bit more personal and a little bit lighthearted, and we're going to try to keep it as quick and as short as possible. We've already hit past that 1 hour mark, and so, we'll try to reel it in real quick. I have 2 daughters who are in competitive cheer. And while I won't really get into the competitive cheer part of it, if you don't think it's a sport, you ain't ever seen what these kids could do. My daughters at their young age are doing athleticism that, frankly, I was never capable of. So it's a sport. This is not sideline cheerleading where you have like go team go type stuff. This is basically, think of it Cirque du Soleil for kids with all the dangers. I think I read the stat at like 63% of all spinal injuries in girls under the age of 18 happen in competitive cheer. It is wild. That said, I don't want to talk about it. We will do that at a later time and date because these athletes deserve a lot of respect. But I want to talk about something very, very specific that happens within the competitive cheer world that, if you know about, is there and obvious. And if you don't know, I'm going to go ahead and teach you a thing or two real quick. Now, competitive cheer, we got to do a quick little breakdown of what exactly happens on what they call competitions. And they are these large-scale events or small-scale events that can either happen over a single day, where it's usually a smaller event with a handful of teams ranging between 10 teams and 100 teams. And it's quick and it's very seamless. There's some places in there to buy T-shirts, and the crowds aren't gigantic, but there's the moms and the dads and the families, and it packs a small little like high school basketball arena holding maybe a couple thousand people. And it's fairly quick, forward, and fast. I might have a small concession stand, that kind of thing. Then you have large-scale events where there could be anywhere from 100 teams to, we went to one this year that I think had 50,000 cheerleaders at it. And that becomes a very different thing. They're multiple day events with multiple rooms, hundreds of thousands of people in attendance. The crowds are gigantic, filling up gigantic convention centers of major metropolitan cities. We've been everywhere from Atlanta to Orlando to Miami to Dallas to Vegas to Nashville. They've been everywhere. They happen everywhere. If you live in a major city, you could probably find a cheerleading event within the next couple of weeks. Well, within a couple of weeks, almost everywhere. This is the off season. That's a side point. Doesn't matter. But within those several day periods of those long, big conventions, you do get lots of families. They're there for long periods of time. The days get long. It is a tough thing on everybody involved. And so I say all these things I'm about to say with the understanding that it is incredibly tough on everybody involved, and the parents deserve all the respect because they are putting the time, the effort, they're spending it with their kids, they're raising kids, they're involved in their lives. That said, there's one very specific thing that drives me fucking nuts at these things, and we're going to get into it. There are three, look, this with these big competitions, they are mostly filled with mothers and children. That's just the way it is. Those are the people that get involved. But there are cheer dads, and they are labeled as such. And there are three types of cheer dads out there in the world at these competitive cheer events. The first type of dad isn't actually there. That's the absentee dad. And we'll kind of break these down a little bit further in just a second. The second type of dad is the dad who dresses up and goes full on into it. And he is dressed with the theme. He is head to toe. Okay? Those are interesting guys. Then the third one, the one that annoys me the most, it's the dad who is there to tell you he spent all his money to pay for his kid to be happy. Again, I want to reiterate that these are my opinions, and they are for a demographic of people that I have a lot of respect for. And so this is with all due respect. God, I hate them. I hate them so much. Let's get into these a little bit more specific for you folks, just to paint the picture. The absentee father is one of three things. There is two separate types of absentee, as in not being there, and some of them have valid reasons, some of them don't, and that's just life. And I'm not going to make jokes about either one, because that's not what it is. The third type of absentee father is the one that is there, that isn't. He is there in spirit, in person. He is on his phone. He is in La La Land. He ain't paying no attention. He's going, is it snack time? When do we got to go? Where do we got to go? Just following orders, not really paying attention. Doesn't have a clue. Doesn't know how to cheer on his kid. Just going like, game's on. I'm watching the game. And you know what? They're there. They're supporting their children. That's all that matters. It is boring. It's boring. Like the hours you sit there, it really does get boring. Like, it's a mental drag. It really is. You gotta really focus in to anyways. The absentee father is there. He is aware. He is just not really paying attention. His kid has a great, he's like, yeah, high fives. He's a great parent, but he just doesn't get about the cheerleading stuff. And that's okay. It's tough. It's hard for everybody to follow. The spirit dads. These guys are incredible. They match the theme of whatever the competitive cheer team is. They rally around and they dress from head to toe. They get the wigs, they dye their beards, they put glitter on, They get matching outfits. They make their own cheers. They cheer their kids on. They chant. They rah rah. They are having a blast. Some of their cups are filled up with stuff that you cannot hand to the children. These are facts. They are having the best time. They are fully invested dads. And I'll tell you what, these dads are super important, right? Because they bring some levity to the situation. And we're talking about competition. These girls, these athletes are honed in, they are focused, they are set to perform very dangerous acrobatics. They have practiced to within an inch of their lives. They do this in their sleep. They are so well rehearsed and ready to go, and they know their count, they know their music, they know their hits, they know how they're going to do everything. And there's so much pressure on these young girls, these young athletes, because they are wanting to win everything, and winning is so important. Not in everything, but in this aspect, winning is a very big, important part of it, right? Because you want to be good, you want to set the standards, you want to be doing incredible stuff. So it is super competitive, as it should be, because it is a competitive sport. And so these spirit dads, they come in and they do a rah rah cheer, and it's always some terrible rhyme or some terrible play on a modern song, and it makes everybody laugh. And these young athletes really do get the break from the pressure that they're really putting themselves under, because it's important to do good at these kind of events. And so those dads are super important. All of these cheer dads are super important. But I do have a lot of respect for these guys. They look silly. They have no swagger. They have no nothing. They look wild, but they are there for the ha-has, and I am all for it. Hello. Hello. Hi. Okay, man. All right, well, I'll see you in just a minute. What's that? Yeah, she's good. She said she just was uncomfortable earlier. She said she was uncomfortable at the gym because she didn't know anybody. Yep. Yep. No, I know. I think something happened, but she just don't want to talk about it. So, but all right, I love you. Bye. And the third type of cheer dad, the bane of my existence. That dad that literally they all wear t-shirts. They think they're clever. They're not. They think they're funny. They're not. They're just stupid. They're obnoxious. They're unoriginal. Yes, it's expensive. So is everything. So is everything. They all wear shirts that say things like, "My bank account hit zero." Hitting zero in competitive cheer is when you can go through an entire routine without a single deduction. Doesn't mean it's a perfect routine. It just means you didn't make any mistakes. I'm not going to get into the judging. That's a whole different discussion. But just understand that it's something that almost all teams strive for. Hitting zero is a very important thing. So, my bank hit zero. Shut up. Shut up. I'm just here for the bank. I'm just here for my checkbook. They literally wear these shirts. It's so repetitive. It is so obnoxious. It's like, we get it. You paid money. Cool. So did the rest of us. Shut up. It's annoying. It's obnoxious. Anyways, that's all I got to say about that. Y'all know how it was. This was today's show. We talked about some interesting stuff. I went on a tangent about Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark and their importance. Cool. We definitely talked about what best meant. Sweet. Went through that Apple list. That was a long talk. Got to cheer dads, which, something that's bugging the hell out of me for a little while. Hey, man, that's about it. So when I close this out, we're going to close it out with a quote that I like that is silly, but also kind of means something. I'm not going to tell you who it's by. Look it up if you want to. It'll make you laugh. It's a good chuckle. Some days you eat the bear. Some days the bear eats you. But we always dress for the hunt. I'm out.